Well, today we're looking at what is my favorite generation of Porsche 911. This is called a 993, the very last of the air-cooled 911s that came into North America in 1995 and wrapped up production in 1998. I love these cars so much, I bought two of them. I had a 97 Carrera S, and then I got rid of that car and bought a 97 Carrera 4S over about 10 years. Absolutely love these cars. And I want to say thanks to my buddy Cornelius, who has Cor Motorcars, who's enabling me to get cars like this to drive, to showcase here on the channel. So he always has some interesting cars, and if you're interested in this car or anything that's kind of interesting, go to his website. I have it in the description below, corcars.com. So the one we have here is the very first year. It's a 1995 with polar silver over blue interior. So this design is one of the reasons why these cars are so collectible. The design of this car has held up for the last 25 years. In fact, I think this is the best looking 911 until they brought out the new 992 just last year. I think that car and this car are kind of tied for the best looking 911 of the last quarter century. So I'm going to walk around and show you what's unique about this particular 1995 model. We'll get in, show you the inside, go for a drive, and we'll touch on why these cars are so collectible. Okay, one interesting quirk about the 993. See the right side mirror here, where it is in relation to the A-pillar? Come around to the driver's side, and you can see that it's actually forward of the A-pillar. It's just a quirk, so you can see it through the side window. So these cars, when they first came to North America, had a much higher ride height. They used to call it online on all the forums, the SUV ride height. So this car has the European ride height, which means it's got the European springs that are lowered down and give you that nice tight gap between the fender and the wheel. Now, these wheels are not the wheels for a 95. So this is the first year. The previous owner will have gotten rid of the cup wheels and gone to what are called the turbo twists. So these came out the next year on the turbo and the later model cars. Now the other thing you'll notice is that this has what's called the basket handle. This is only for 1995. After that, they put it up here in the top of the rear window. This car also has a rear wiper. Now, this is sort of a love it or hate it situation. Now you can actually, if you don't like the wiper on the back, you take this out, there's a hole in the glass, and all you do is you get a plug and you plug that up. So some people like it, some people don't. This is for the west coast of Canada where it rains a lot, so I kind of think that is cool, and it is period correct. All right, now another thing is, this car also has the big ovals on the back. These are the big chrome exhaust tips that are very expensive and hard to get. Okay, well, before we get to the inside, this is how you open the trunk. Now, one of the features about this engine, so this is the beautiful flat six, 3.6 liter, 272 horsepower. Now, this is the only year that has what's called a non-varioram engine. So they have this technology that came in the later models that had sort of a system across the top of the engine here. One of the reasons is this is a much freer revving engine, and also there are things internally called secondary air intakes, SAI ports, and they would clog up on the cars that had that technology. So a lot of people that are looking for a lower maintenance car like the 95s, it doesn't have the varioram, doesn't have the SAI, and maybe a little more free revving engine. You notice this one also has the engine sound package. You can see the chrome on the airbox. Now some people would actually just drill holes in the side of the airbox. Me, that's what I did in my Carrera S, but that gives it a unique sound. All right, let's get inside. So this car has the classic Porsche gauges. Oil is very important, of course, with these cars because they're air cooled, but more correctly, they're oil cooled. There's no water, no radiators. So this car has had these chrome surrounds added, which gives it a slightly sportier feel. Also, you notice that the radio is an aftermarket radio. This car does have the original Porsche radio, so this gives you you know, some modern technology. If it was me and I was going to buy a car like this again, I would buy the new Porsche Classic radios. So they are from Porsche. They have Bluetooth, they have streaming audio, they even have navigation. It's a simple, thin format that fits inside these cars, and I think they look really good. So this car also has the softback sport seats. They're heavily bolstered. And in 1995, these were sort of a carryover from the 964. They didn't go yet to the hardback sport seats, but these are very supportive and very comfortable, and actually quite sought after to get this generation of sport seat. Also, you'll notice down next to the door here, this has the upgraded stereo system, so you have the speakers built into the doors. With the cars that don't have this package, there's just a sort of an opening here, a tray, and a speaker stuck in the door. So this is a better sound system. Now, considering it's the beginning of the 90s, it's not like a modern car, but that's where having, say, a new classic radio would certainly help. In here, you have all the switches. They control things like the spoiler goes up and down. You have your sunroof, the rear wiper. I've never driven a car that has the rear wiper, and that's pretty cool. So those are all the switches. This is also a 6-speed manual, of course, and the 993, this air-cooled car, was the first car in the 911s to have a 6-speed instead of the 5-speed. Cruise control in these cars is actually very good, and it's a nice thing to have, because the interesting thing is, if you can see my feet down below, your feet aren't directly in front of you. They're off to one side. I'll put the handbrake on here. So your feet, if this would be directly in front of me, the pedals are actually off to one side. So that's why having cruise control in a long trip is nice. You can actually enjoy driving along. So that's a quick tour of the inside of this car. In excellent shape, nice leather seats. I like the blue. Let's go for a spin. So I just went out for a quick drive in this car, and I phoned my buddy who's selling it, and I said, what suspension is in this? Because it drives so beautifully. Now, a lot of people take away that original factory suspension because, as I mentioned, the ride height is so high, and you can put a bunch of different things in there. I said it had the Euro springs. Actually, this car has what are called PSS 10s, adjustable coilovers, and they're an expensive system to put in. They're fully adjustable, and this one is absolutely fantastic. The way it drives is so smooth yet refined, and great feedback. So this is a rear-wheel drive car only. The engine is at the back, as I showed you, and it's got a sound and a feel that just can't be replicated with a water-cooled modern 911. Just can't be done. 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds. Remember, this is a 25-year-old car, 272 horsepower, and this car, probably on size, is about the size of a Boxster today. So the 911 has grown a lot in size, and think about that car as a reference point for this. So why are these cars so collectible now? Well, because they have a character and an essence, even a smell that you just don't get in a modern Porsche. For example, the dash is here, and the windshield is only about 6 inches in front of the dash. You're right at the window. You're looking over the front of the car. It's just the tidiest, little, smallest, perfect machine that delivers a feeling that is not replicated at all by anything in a modern car. Heading onto the highway now. That just revs so freely. Now, here's a piece of advice. I will give you a piece of advice from somebody that has owned 2 of these cars. Do not go chasing the perfect color combination. You want to find a car that has been sorted by somebody that knows what they're doing. So I know the mechanic who worked on this car. He's the same mechanic I've had for many, many years. And you want to buy a car from somebody that knows what they're doing. There's some of these older cars that have just been, you know, not well looked after, not done by people who know what they're doing. So my advice is, Find a car that has been well looked after, pay the right price for it. It'll save you so much money in the long run. Trust me on that. It will save you a ton of money in the long run. It is like coming home again. I have to say, after just a few minutes driving, and I owned 2 of these cars for, you know, over a decade, it's like coming home again. The directness of the steering wheel to the front wheels, you don't get that with a modern car with, you know, electric or electromechanical suspension in the new 911s. The engine has this wonderful sound. It's a car that has a real chameleon factor. The 911 has always had that. It can be laid back and a really good everyday commuter car. But when you put your foot into it and press down on the throttle, it's a real Porsche. Even though this car's 25 years old, trust me, you get this out onto a twisty road and have some fun, it is the real deal. So they just don't make 911s like this anymore. Air-cooled 911 ended in 1998. That's 22 years ago. And there's a cult following for these cars that seems to grow every single year. More and more young people find out about them, and you need to get that itch scratched. I needed to get the itch scratched. I needed to have an air-cooled 911. I did it. I had 2 of them. I enjoyed it. And you pass it on to the next person, and that person gets to enjoy these cars. So you're probably asking yourself, Zach, if you love these cars so much, why did you sell yours? Well, I get to test drive brand new cars every single week, and I travel a lot for that, or I did until COVID-19, and I just didn't drive the car enough. I only did about 1,000 kilometers a year. So it got to the point where it made no sense for me to have this very expensive asset sitting in the garage. So that's why I sold it. Do I miss it? Yeah. Would I get another one? Maybe. But I'm glad I scratched that itch, to be honest with you. So once again, thanks to Cor Motorcars for letting me have this car. This one is a local Vancouver Canadian car. Very low mileage. It's only got 130,000 kilometers on it and runs absolutely beautifully. Trust me on this one. If you've always had the itch for an air-cooled classic 911, you can't go wrong with a 993. It's like putting money into the bank and taking it out when you go to sell them. The market right now is particularly flat, so you could buy one of these, drive it for a few years, and then sell it on to the next enthusiast and get all, if not most, of your money back. That's a good position to be in, especially when you're driving a Porsche.